Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fanfiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
The intermission was over. It was now time to enter the cauldron and complete the mission that had been given to him by his sensei Danzo. It wasn't enough that he had to get promoted, no. Naruto knew what was at stake and what needed to be done. He had to win this fight and win the Chunin exams so that Konoha came out of it looking strong. It wasn't just that though. He also had to send a message to the world that Konoha was not one to be messed with. Jinchuriki would die today. Naruto knew that Konoha had to send a strong message out to the world that when you try and attempt to invade Konoha, this is what would happen. There would no doubt be inquiries made into the strength of Konoha after the invasion by other nations looking to take whatever pieces of the puzzle that made up the military landscape. Come on, Naruto. You can do it. Choji stated with a smile on his face whilst Ino looked at him for an elongated time before giving him a quick hug. Thanks you guys. I needed that, and he truly meant that. Despite the confidence that Naruto had in his abilities, he knew that this was going to be the hardest fight of his life so far. If the full bijou ever got released, then he knew he stood no chance whatsoever. The blonde-haired boy turned around and walked towards the stairs. He didn't want to waste any chakra using his shunshin to get down to the arena. He was taking absolutely every precaution that came to his mind. Naruto stood there in front of Gaara, who was muttering words underneath his breath. He couldn't help but feel that the person, or rather thing, that he was communicating with was his bijou. If Gemna noticed this, he didn't make any mention or indicate that he cared about it. He stared down his opponent with an impassive look on his face. Internally though, he was sweating bullets. This was not your average fight, and Naruto was only now starting to realize just what he had signed up for in fighting a bijou. The problem was though that there was no going back at this point. Far too many innocent people's lives were on the line, and that was not something that Naruto wanted to have on his conscience if he could avoid it. Congratulations to making it this far into the tournament, as we are now at the grand final. The winner of this tournament will be crowned as the champion. Gemna loudly stated with chakra enhancing his voice, much to the delight of the crowd. Naruto! 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 The crowd started cheering fanatically as he was the last person to make it to the finals that hailed from Konoha. He was the only local, and if there was one thing that was for certain, it was that the locality definitely influenced who was the home crowd favorite. After having watched Naruto go through the two original favorites for the tournament whilst coming out of nowhere, Naruto was heavily riding the underdog tag. The funny thing was that to everyone in the know, Naruto was far from the underdog. Whilst he may have not been a favorite, he had shown enough during the previous stages that he was no pushover. With the Hokage having finished giving a speech to thank everyone for coming, it was now that everyone turned their attention to the arena below, and Gemna gave the go-ahead for the match that everyone wanted to see to go ahead. Naruto wasted absolutely no time whatsoever as he sprinted off the ground, hoping to catch Gaara off guard. As he was rushing towards his opponent, Naruto let his bloodline fully come out to play. Bones started coming out all over his body, making it very hard for anything to pierce his skin, as it would get caught by a bone before it even reached his skin. It made Naruto naturally a damn good taijutsu counter. Unfortunately, Gaara wasn't a taijutsu-based fighter at all, and this didn't help Naruto, as sand was easily able to get between the bones and attack his skin. That was where his fire element came into play. All of the bones that Naruto had were shining various shades of orange. The parts of his body which were easier for Naruto to channel chakra to were a brighter color. It just went to show that no matter how much you progressed as a shinobi, there was always somewhere that you could improve on. Naruto rushed towards Gaara at a speed in which his sand could only barely keep up with, and when he tried to swat Naruto down to the ground, the blonde-haired genin would simply swipe his arm at the sand. Because of the fire manipulation that Naruto was using, he was turning the sand into glass. On one occasion, Naruto sent it back in the direction of Gaara, who didn't budge an inch as his automatic defense blocked the incoming shards of glass before returning to the earth below. Seeing that he wasn't having much luck, Naruto decided that he was going to take a different approach as he hoped that this one would work. The Uzumaki fired off 2 hands worth of finger bullets at his enemy whose sand came up to block the rounds. There was cause for concern though as Gaara watched as the bullets kept slowly coming towards him despite his sand's best efforts to keep the calcium at bay. Eventually, the finger bones came to a grinding halt mere millimeters away from Gaara's face, but as his focus was on that, it meant that it wasn't on Naruto. That was a bad game plan. Naruto was now 10 meters away from Gaara and for all intents and purposes, many of the civilians, academy students, and some genin/chunin thought that this was a mistake. Whilst it was obvious that Naruto knew some ninjutsu, it seemed to them that his main strength was taijutsu and that he should stick to that. They didn't know him well enough. Naruto pointed one hand to his enemy and then launched another round of finger bullets, only these ones were different. All of the bones that Naruto had coming out of his body had an orange tinge to them thanks to the Katan chakra flowing through them. When he fired off his finger bullets though, the color dissipated as the chakra conductor left his body. These new ones were different though. There was a reason as to why Naruto could only launch 5 of them at a time and he had to be standing still to do it. These finger bullets didn't lose the color that they had when they left Naruto's body. They kept their charge as Naruto watched with intent as they sailed through the air to their target. Gaara didn't think much more of the slightly different colored projectiles as he knew that it would make a difference. His sand was impenetrable. Well, that was what he thought at least, because when these bullets hit, they didn't simply try and break through the sand barrier, no. Instead they exploded on contact. Fragments of bone shards were sent in all different directions. The fragment's flight path was only enhanced by the propulsion coming from the explosion and it made it a much harder job for the sand to come up and defend Gaara. Out of the 30 shards that came from the explosion, 4 of them managed to bypass the first layer of defense that Gaara had and careened into the second and final armor that the boy had. The shards of bone passed through the layer of sand only barely. It was enough that they got in contact with Gaara's skin, but unfortunately for Naruto, they were unable to break the skin. For the first time in his life, Gaara felt a feeling he had never felt before. That was physical pain. Ah! Is this what pain is? It must be. Yes, mother will have your blood, Uzumaki. Gaara shouted as the look in his eyes was so far gone. There was even some slight coloration happening to his eyes. Naruto saw this and knew that he had to up the ante even more. Naruto sped off once more in an effort to get inside the guard of Gaara and deal some serious damage. As far as the blonde-haired boy was concerned, everything that had happened so far was all meaningless. Just like the fights with Rock Lee, the Suna shinobi was at a loss in how to defend himself against fast shinobi. Naruto was doing much the same game plan that his friend had devised. The only difference was that he was able to deal much more damage in the blows he connected as he his bloodline out in full force. Unfortunately for the genin, it couldn't all be sunshine and roses as Gaara managed to get a hold of his ankle as he tried to get closer to the red-haired boy. He was flung as hard into the ground and quickly had to get up on his feet as there was large amounts of sand that were coming after him. Naruto did a backflip and got out of the trajectory of the incoming sand before he had a slight second to catch his breath. When those 5 seconds were up though, he was back at it going at 110%. After all, with there being so many lives on the line, there was no way he could fail. He didn't want anyone to hurt the people he cared about. In a surprising move to Gaara, Naruto used the Shunshin to move faster. It was enough to catch his opponent off guard and Naruto used that to his full advantage as he launched a powerful kick right into the midsection of Gaara. The red-haired boy blocked the incoming kick with ease. This was not something that Naruto was concerned with though as he planned for this to happen. If it didn't, then that was a bonus. What he did do though was that Naruto got himself in a close position and aimed his right hand and fired. Tenchi Sendan, drilling finger bullets. Naruto shouted out as he fired off the rounds from a point-blank position right into the chest of Gaara. While he tried to, as there was the sand that came up to protect its Jinchuriki as best as it could. 2 of the bullets were stopped at the first form of defense in the wall. The next 2 made their way past the wall of sand and hit the sand armor the Gaara was wearing. The final bullet though was slightly different. It managed to make its way past both of Gaara's defenses and the bullet pierced the skin right below the boy's left clavicle bone. Ah! Gaara screamed. It was right now that a foreign feeling encapsulated the boy. He had no idea what it was, but he didn't like it at all. It was like when Yashimaru betrayed him, but much, much worse. He didn't even notice that the sand came up much quicker and protected him inside a cocoon. Naruto definitely did, as he almost got his hand stuck in the sand, but luckily, through a bit of fire manipulation, he managed to get it out. His train of thought was momentarily interrupted as there was some loud screaming that took place so everyone in the stadium could hear. "It's blood! My blood!" Gaara screamed in terror as he had never experienced this before. He finally knew the feeling of pain and he didn't like it. He didn't like it at all. It was time for Mother to come out and destroy his enemy so that he could prove his existence. Naruto wasn't aware of what was going on, but he didn't like the looks of it at all. The sphere of sand that surrounded Gaara was just like the sand when there was no sphere, in the sense that it was sentient and blocking Naruto's attempts to get in close and stab one of his bones into where Gaara was. With Gaara's sand acting as such a good defense and there being no way around, Naruto knew that he would have to go through Gaara. Luckily, he had created a jutsu over the period of time training that he thought would do just that. XXX. As the fight was going on, Temari couldn't help but watch on in fear. She had no idea that Gaara would be getting pushed this far in his fight. Never did she expect anyone to be able to hurt Gaara, let alone for it to be a genin. Just what was Konoha feeding these kids? What with that green spandex wearing kid as well? What this meant for the invasion Temari did not know. They hadn't been given the order yet to unleash the beast, and with the financial state that Tsunegakure was in at the moment, anything less than a successful invasion was tantamount to failure. They had to get this right. Whilst he was not thinking about the invasion, Might Guy was thinking about something else entirely. He was thinking about just how talented of a fighter Naruto was. Never in a million years did he expect for someone with the dead bone pulse bloodline to live in Konoha. There was a reason why the specific bloodline was so feared and renowned around the world, which led to its demise. To think that Naruto had it was mind-boggling. He hoped that in the future, with Asuma's approval of course, that he could introduce himself to the boy and work with Naruto in refining his taijutsu to the point of excellence. The amount of potential that he could see in the boy was outstanding. Konoha definitely needed more skilled taijutsu fighters, and as Konoha's taijutsu master, Guy took it upon himself to give back to the village that had given him so much. Kakashi was thinking about Naruto, but not in the same way that Guy was. Sure, he could see the buckets of potential just oozing out of Naruto, but that was only a given considering the fact that his father was none other than Minato Namikaze. It was clear to anyone who actually knew Minato that Naruto looked like a carbon copy of his father. The good thing was for Kakashi was that from the looks of things, Naruto wasn't just the clone of his father. He seemed to have inherited a great deal of confidence, exuberance, and extroverted nature from his mother. When he looked at Naruto, Kakashi was conflicted with his emotions. He couldn't be prouder of the person that he was seeing right in front of his eyes. On the other hand, the silver-haired Jonin would have loved to be a part of the development process of Naruto. There was fear that when he prevented Naruto from joining a team, he was killing the boy's career right before it began, but thankfully, under the guidance of Asuma, Naruto would become a fine shinobi. It wasn't just Kakashi and Guy who were changing their opinions of Naruto whilst watching him fight in the grand final of the Chunin exams. The other person was none other than his godfather. Much like Guy, Jiraiya could see the potential hidden inside of Naruto and couldn't wait to start teaching him. The Toad Sannin already had a few ideas in mind of what he could do in terms of refining the boy and combing his bloodline and fire element into one well-oiled machine. He only wished that Naruto would forgive him for being a lousy godfather. Sure, he knew that objectively, it wasn't his own entire fault and that the needs of the many outweigh those of the few or the one and all as a spy master, but that didn't make things any easier. Jiraiya knew that most of the blame rested squarely on his shoulders. As if he wanted to, he could have made the effort to visit Naruto and interact with the boy, but he didn't. Looking at Naruto now though made Jiraiya chuckle. He couldn't help but think that Naruto was destined for great things, and then there was also the fact that the boy was a natural-born leader. XXX. I can't hear you guys. Let me hear some fucking noise. Naruto shouted as he stood up on a wall of the Colosseum. The second that he finished saying this, raucous noise came from the crowd and a massive grin spread on the face of Naruto. The blonde-haired boy ripped his shirt off, which was much to the delight of the female presence of the stadium. Whilst he somewhat did it because he was pumped up, Naruto also did it because his next move wasn't yet fully completed. Naruto used his left hand to hold onto his right bicep and started channeling chakra into the arm. Bone started coming out of the top layer of skin from both his elbow and fingers. It slowly started to spread across the arm before it connected in the middle. His entire arm was covered in bone armor and his hand was clenched in a ball, with there being a sharp tip to complete the final process of the first stage. Sweat dripped down the brow of Naruto as the hard part was done. He hadn't been practicing this for all that long, but it was now time for him to put it into use whether he liked it or not. If Gaara was preparing to unleash his bijou right in the stadium, then he had to act now. Spark ignited and the forearm that was covered in thick, dense bone was lit on fire through the manipulation of chakra. A mixture of yellow and orange chakra appeared on the arm of Naruto and he smirked. This was by far the best he had created in the time that he had spent creating this jutsu. The only problem though was that he hadn't yet given it a name. That was food for thought on a later date if he survived, as Naruto started sprinting down the wall as a way to build up momentum. Danzo had told him about the basic mechanics of the Chidori and how the more speed you built up, the more damage the jutsu did. Naruto took the same principles and applied them to his own jutsu. Naruto sprinted down the wall at a speed which was even faster than before, as he knew what needed to be done. As he was getting closer to Gaara, the Eye of Sand spotted his intentions and did its best to use the sand to not only block Naruto but cripple the person trying to harm Gaara. It didn't work. Naruto was simply too fast and managed to weave his way through the obstacles. Right when he got close, Naruto yanked back his arm and used the stretch reflex to get that little bit more speed and thrusted the weapon surrounding his hand right into the sand sphere. There was some resistance in the reaction to Naruto's attack, but it was nothing that the blonde-haired boy couldn't push through. The spear coating his hand slammed right through the sand and felt the familiar feeling of squelching and cracking of bones and skin being taken out of position. Thankfully his hand was surrounded by bone, as that meant that he didn't feel any of the mush that was Gaara's brain. There was no scream, there was very little sound to begin with, as all that was happening was blood was pouring out of the hole and coating Naruto's katan-covered arm. It was death on impact. The sand that surrounded Gaara started to fall down to the ground as there was no chakra circulating through the sand. The sight was not one for the faint of heart. Some people in the stands even vomited as they watched in horror. There was, a piece of bone, still on fire, which happened to be melting the skin of Gaara, was slightly to the right of the middle of his forehead. It went through one end and you could see the tip poking out the back if you looked careful enough. Winner of this fight and the winner of the Konoha Chunin exams is Naruto Uzumaki. Gemna shouted out loud, and the second that was stated, raucous laughter erupted and filled the entire stadium. It didn't take long at all for his name to start getting chanted, but that was stopped when bright gold light shot out of the body of Gaara. It hung in the air for a few moments with everyone dead silent. The Konoha populace was aware of what this was, as they had felt something much worse on the day the Kyuubi attacked. Eventually, the chakra slowly vanished into thin air before it was replaced with a whole bunch of feathers. Naruto felt sleepy but quickly realized that it was a genjutsu. With a pulse of chakra, the genjutsu was gone and he was no longer affected by it. Explosions rocked through the Colosseum and a massive purple barrier came up and surrounded the side of the building the Hokage was sitting in. Well, I'd like to say that that's that, and I've done my fair share, but I know I can do more. I wonder if there is any money involved in winning the Chunin exams? Naruto curiously thought to himself. A mere second later and he was crash-tackled to the ground and turned around to find himself staring at the back of the exam proctor. Temari and Kankuro, I want you to gather the body of Gaara at all costs and take it back to Sunagakure. We can't let Konoha get their hands on it. Baki said as he was running damage control as he tried to make the best out of a bad situation. Hearing the orders from her sensei, Temari didn't even bother wiping the tears away from her eyes as anger fueled her motive. Futon, Kamaitashi no Jutsu, Wind Release, Sickle Weasel Jutsu. Temari shouted out as she unleashed her fan on Ginjaa and Naruto. Naruto immediately went through some seals. Katangukakyu no Jutsu, Fire Release, Grand Fireball Jutsu, Naruto called out as he too used his jutsu. The affinity mismatch was what allowed Naruto to get away with using less chakra to defend himself and return the favor to the proctor who was currently engaging in a fight with the sensei of his former opponent Gaara. Unfortunately for Naruto, Kankuro used his puppet to safely capture the body of Gaara and make sure that no one could damage it. It was clear to see that the two had good teamwork after years of time spent on the battlefield together. Once the body of Gaara was safely collected, the two looked at one another and nodded. They both headed to the exit of the stadium and planned on making sure that their brother got the proper burial he deserved. Naruto was about to chase after them until Ginjaa called out, "Kid! This is war. The exams are now over. I need you to make your way over to your teammates in the stands and then find your Jonin sensei and follow his orders. Now!" The special Jonin shouted out, to which Naruto didn't need to be told twice. He nodded and thanked the man before heading over towards Asuma. He was keen to see the man that he hadn't seen in a long time, even if it was under not the best of circumstances. Naruto made his way back up to the competitor's box where his teammates were, and he didn't like what he saw. There in front of him was Ino in a battle with a Chunin, what it looked like from the Sand Village. Not wanting either of his best friends to get hurt, let alone worse, Naruto went up to the freshly minted Chunin from the side with great speed and slammed Bone Spike directly into the ribcage of his enemy. It was death on impact as the bone broke through the defenses and tore both lungs in the process. The body fell off of his hand and slumped to the ground. Thanks, Naruto. Also, congratulations on winning the Chunin exams and defeating Gaara. Ino called out with a relieved sigh. Whilst she was confident that she could have taken him, it was nice to have some help from her teammate. She went in for a hug despite knowing about the bony situation that Naruto was dealing with at the moment. The Uzumaki stopped her right then and there though. "We don't have time that right now, we have orders to get to Asuma sensei and report for duty. By the way, where is Choji?" Naruto questioned, which put a bit of a frown on the face of the blonde-haired girl before it got serious. "Choji fell victim to the genjutsu and has been unconscious since then," Ino said, as it was clear that the two were reverting back into their roles with Naruto being the leader. "For fuck's sake!" Naruto swore, which startled Ino. "I thought that Choji was better than that. Guess we're just going to have to make it out of this and then get better as a team," Naruto said, more so to himself than to Ino. "Alright Ino, I need you to go and wake up Choji. From there we will head over to Asuma sensei, who is protecting the nobles." Ino got to work, and right as Naruto finished saying this, he had to jump out of the way and dodge the incoming kunai. On instinct, Naruto turned around and fired off a round of finger bullets, one of which was luckily or unluckily able to hit the enemy sound ninja in the throat depending on which side you baraked for. Choji, with the help of Ino, was getting up despite the fact that he was still a little bit groggy for his unplanned nap time. The blonde-haired girl sent a pulse of chakra through the boy's system, which seemed to jolt him awake. "Oh, sorry guys, I can't believe that I fell for that genjutsu, I guess I wasn't paying attention." Knowing that Naruto was annoyed, Ino took it upon herself to play the peacekeeper role. She could see that now was not the time to get into any fights. "It's okay, just make sure that it doesn't happen again," she replied, to which Choji nodded in affirmation. Naruto was not in the mood to mince words. He had a mission to complete, and it was his self-appointed duty to make sure that the mission got completed without any casualties. He desperately wanted to keep his 100% mission success rate intact. Choji and Ino fell in line, and the trio formed the common triangle formation with Choji at the front. Whilst the quickest way would be to traverse across the field that the Chunin exams were held on, that was no man's land at the moment, and it was paramount to suicide as you could easily get attacked from any and all directions. That was why Naruto made the executive call that they would go the long way. Choji was even happy as they got to go through the outer arena of the Colosseum and pass through the food stalls. If it was anyone else other than Choji, Naruto would have had a go at them, but he knew that his teammate fought better with food in his stomach of the high-fat variety. It was something to do with his clan's special jutsus. 2 minutes later, the trio arrived at the top of the stairs to the noble box that housed the daimyo. Luckily for Team Asuma, they managed to avoid any form of battle along the way. "Asuma-sensei!" Naruto called out loudly, which got the attention of the bearded man. He grinned when he saw his 3 genin all there. "We were told by Gunma to come and report for duty under your orders." "Right. Kurenai at the moment is creating a genjutsu to make it look as if there is no one here. What I need you 3 to do is to help me in waking up all the nobles. Make sure that you take your time, and Naruto, I want you to retract your bloodline at the moment, as I don't want you to give the nobles heart attacks upon waking up." Ino giggled, but that was all that happened outside of taking their orders. Turning around, Asuma bent down onto one knee, gently proceeded to inject some chakra into the body of the fire daimyo. What is going on? Asuma-kun, is that you? Yes, Daimyo-sama, it's me. I will be brief, but at the moment, Konoha is under attack by a joint force from Sunagakure and Otogakure. Myself, another Jonin, and my genin students are all here to protect you and transport you to the Sarutobi clan compound, where you will be safe until all of this is over. Oh, okay then, Asuma-kun, we will do as you ask, as our life is in your hands. What do you need us to do? At the moment, the other Jonin is creating a genjutsu to make everyone here invisible, whilst my students are waking up the other people in your entourage. Now that you are conscious, can you please gather your belongings so that we can leave as soon as possible? The daimyo nodded. He had been around enough shinobi to know what a genjutsu was. Now that he was more alert, he was keen to see these students that Asuma was talking about. Much to his surprise, he didn't expect to see the child who had just won the Chunin exams. That was surprising and definitely something to think about in the future. He was very impressed with the performance that Naruto had displayed. The other 2 had also put on promising displays, although not quite as good as Naruto. Alright, is everyone accounted for? Asuma questioned, although he also made his own check. Right, I want Naruto and Choji at the front and Ino at the back with me. We will be using a square formation. Team Asuma all nodded. It played to each of their strengths. It allowed Naruto and Choji to use their ninjutsu without any chance of hitting the nobles, and it also provided Ino with the cover she needed for her clan jutsus as well as genjutsus. With the plan in motion, the group of shinobi and nobles set out on their A-ranked mission. Naruto and Choji led the group up the same way that Team Asuma came. They went up the stairs of the box that they were sitting in previously and then headed down the stairs to the emergency exit. Much like the last time, it seemed that all the fighting was happening in the stands or outside. The hard part now was when they got to the big exit doors. They would now be walking open air where there could be a lot of crossfire. Choji Naruto whispered in an attempt to get his friend's attention. What he had to say next was not something that he wanted the nobles to hear, as it would bring down their confidence, and that was simply not an option. I'm running out of chakra at the moment. Do you have any soldier pills? Choji merely grinned and handed over one of his homemade ones. Since it came from the Akimichi clan, it didn't actually taste all that bad, but the influx of energy was well worth the bad taste. Feeling refreshed, Naruto thanked his friend and opened the door slightly. As he looked out, it looked as if the coast was clear. Come on, it's safe to leave. Naruto said and started walking out of the building, although he made sure to hug the walls as he walked. The nobles quickly followed as they made their way out of the stadium and headed towards the Sarutobi clan compound. The problem was that the compound was 4 kilometers away on the edge of town. With the stadium near the center of town, it meant that they were in for a long journey. For the first 1 kilometer, everything was fine and dandy, as no one suspected the genjutsu was even there. That was until things changed. Asuma, I have guided you out of the danger area at the moment. I will go and find a place where I can be more useful. Kurenai stated, to which Asuma nodded and let the woman go, but not before staring at her ass. Right, kids, this just got tougher, although I know for certain that we are more than capable enough of successfully completing our mission. They didn't need to be told anymore, and they just kept going on mission. Now, with the added threat of being caught out and targeted, it only made their mission that much harder. 5 minutes later, and a group of what looked like to be a group of Jonin and Chunin came near the nobles. Given the Sunagakure headbands, Asuma knew that this was not going to be a friendly visit. Kids, you go on ahead, I will hold off these guys to give you some space to make it to the safe house. Asuma shouted out, which left no room for argument. This was not the time to be playing games as there were innocent lives at stake. Right, with Asuma-sensei holding off the enemies, everything will still be fine. Naruto stated in an attempt to run damage control. The last thing that he needed right now was for there to be panic. What he didn't notice was that the fire daimyo narrowed his eyes with scrutiny as he waited to see what Naruto would do next. He knew that Asuma wouldn't have put his life in the hands of the boy if he didn't trust him completely. He wanted to see what Asuma saw in the boy. Damn it! Now the ninja is gone, we're getting protected by kids. Nerve was struck with Naruto. The blonde-haired boy instantly turned around and faced whoever it was that had made that call. As it turned out, it was a girl about a year or two younger than himself. He really wasn't in the mood to deal with this. Okay, I don't give a shit who you are or who your parents are, but let me tell you this. Don't you ever question me when my whole job is to find the best way to ensure that you are safe. This is a war, for crying out loud. Don't you think that it would be best not to bite the hand that is trying to protect you, you brain-dead little girl? Good, silence, just what I like to hear, and now that we have gotten that sorted out, let's head out. Naruto said in a tone which he hoped that killed any comeback. It didn't. That was my granddaughter, you know, was all what was said, but Naruto instantly knew who had said it. With testosterone and adrenaline running through his system, Naruto answered back in a way that he probably shouldn't have. Yeah, and I stand by what I said. At this present point in time, I am the most qualified to ensure that all of you survive. I don't care if you are the most powerful man in the world or not. That doesn't mean shit when there are people out there trying to kill you. I sure as hell don't need some civilian kid telling me, the person who just killed a Jinchuriki, for crying out loud, to tell me how to do my job. Now can we get back to doing what we are supposed to do, which is ensuring that you get to safety so that you can ram a giant pole up the ass of the Suna daimyo for sanctioning this fucking invasion? Naruto said before turning around and getting focused for the mission. He didn't say anything, but he was mightily impressed with the demeanor and attitude shown to him by the boy in front of him. There were very few people at all who had the balls to say something like that. That, in conjunction with the amount of skill that he had shown during the Chunin exams, made the man certain that Naruto would make an exemplary guardian ninja. Naruto was unaware of this as his mind started racing when Choji yelled out incoming, before going through some hand signs and slamming his hands on the ground. A wall of mud came up and protected everyone from the incoming kunai and shuriken. Fear and panic was rife through the group. Everybody stay calm. I have this under control, Naruto said in what was a commanding voice. Oh, look at this, a genin team are looking after these nobles. This is going to be easier than I thought. A man from Sunagakure stated, who had on a flak jacket signifying that he was at least a chunin. He was beyond confident that he could kill the kids in front of him. That was until he saw a bunch of trees and some menacingly looking red eyes. He screamed. Turning around in horror to see what it was that had caused their team leader to scream, they found themselves staring at a beautiful woman holding a kunai deep into the neck of their superior. Ino made the situation her own by being the quickest to react. She threw her mind into the body of one of the other enemies, grabbed a kunai and stabbed that into the neck of the final shinobi. Naruto, Ino called out, to which the boy nodded. He picked out one of the kunai from his pocket and threw it at the body Ino was in. Right at the last second, the platinum blonde-haired girl released the jutsu and returned to her original body. Hey Naruto, I know you like holding onto my body for dear life and all, but can you let me go? Now's not the time for that sort of thing. We can do it later if you're lucky, she said with an exaggerated wink on her face. Naruto for his part blushed badly. He was still coming to terms as seeing women as women, and it was not helping at all with his teammate being such a tease. It didn't help that she was actually a cool person outside of that. Stop talking and do your damn job, Naruto called out as he tried to divert the attention away from him. It didn't work, as a few of the adult civilians chuckled at the expense that Naruto was put through. Thankfully for Naruto and the rest of Team Asuma, there were no more hiccups along the way in making it to the Sarutobi clan compound. Okay, now all we have to do is wait until Asuma-sensei comes back because these gates are only opened by blood seals and no one else here is a member of the Sarutobi clan. We just have to be patient. Naruto said, to which the group of nobles nodded. They were happy to be safe and away from the danger. Now that he had had some time and the adrenaline was wearing off, Naruto thought back on his previous conversation and realized that he may have been a bit harsh earlier. The blonde made his way over to the girl who had talked to before. Hey, I just wanted to say that I am sorry for the way that I talked to you before. We were in a situation where negativity wouldn't have done anyone favors, but I shouldn't have snapped at you. Can we be friends? Naruto questioned whilst holding his hand out to shake. The girl looked at Naruto and there was a slight tint of pink to her cheeks. Yes, we can. My name is Akira Tokugawa, she stated as she extended her hand and shook Naruto's. Ino, who was briefly glancing at the two out of the corner of her eye, scowled momentarily before her focus returned to the task at hand of protecting the nobles. Here she was, she a noble as the clan heir of the Yamanaka clan, having to protect others. Oh well, she sighed as it was part of the job. After shaking the hand of his new friend, something which he is happy about, Naruto made his way over to the daimyo. Excuse me, daimyo-sama, I'm sorry for the way that I acted before. I shouldn't have shouted at you despite my anger. You didn't do anything to deserve that, Naruto said as he hoped to mend the bad impression he had given off before. The impassive expression on the face of the daimyo made Naruto second-guess himself as he was unsure if he had said something to piss off his big boss. Do you stand by what you said to me before? If I asked you to say it now, would you still say the same thing? The daimyo questioned whilst looking pointedly at Naruto. Put on the spot, Naruto was not sure what to say. He was conflicted. There was the answer that he wanted to say, but he wasn't sure if it was the right move to make politically. In the end, he knew he was asked a question and Naruto gave the most honest answer he could. Probably, yes. I would try and change the way that I worded it, but I was still the leader of the mission and having comments like that thrown my way would only decrease our effectiveness as a team. I am sorry if this offends you, Naruto stated as he made sure to word his sentences carefully. He didn't want to say the wrong thing. Good, Naruto, was it? I don't like people who are yes men. In my position, I need people who are able to give me the solid advice required to run a country. I can't have people agreeing with me even if it is the wrong decision. As he spoke, he saw the smile on Naruto's face and knew that it would make what he had to say next that much easier. Naruto, I would like for you to join me as one of my 10 guardian shinobi. You will essentially be a shinobi directly under my command and you will live in my palace with me, my other family members and the other guardians. You don't have to make the decision now and I will wait until all of this is over to officially offer you the position and have you sign the contract. All I will say is that the daimyo offered, which stunned Naruto. He had no idea what to say or do right now as he wasn't sure if he should take the offer. He needed to think it through and consult Asuma-sensei and Danzo-sensei. Turning around, Naruto looked at his teammates and he was fairly confident he already knew the answer. It was then that Asuma arrived. So what did I miss? He questioned with a smirk on his face. Nothing really apart from Kurenai Taisha helping us for a bit, although I don't think that we really needed her help, Naruto confidently stated, which got the nod of approval from Asuma. Good. Now how about we go inside the compound? Asuma questioned, although it was more of a rhetorical question. The Jonin quickly placed his hand over the seal and channeled some chakra into it. It took a few seconds, but the gears started grinding and the doors started opening. Feet started moving and the civilians made their way inside as Asuma guided them towards the largest house, which would be where they housed XXX. When you considered the fact that Naruto had 3 fights, with one of them being a Jinchuriki and then having to lead a group of very important diplomats safely whilst there was an invasion going on, it was no surprise at all that Naruto passed out fairly quickly after everything settled down and the adrenaline wore off. Upon waking up the next morning feeling both refreshed and hungry, Naruto decided to head down the stairs of his apartment and get some breakfast. Once he was done eating, the blonde-haired boy had a shower and got dressed. He wasn't entirely sure what he was supposed to be doing today, but he assumed with whatever went down the previous day would dictate his day. That was, until there was a knocking sound on the door. Curious as to whom it was, Naruto opened the door. "Hi there, my name is Satoshi Hasegawa. I am a representative of the Konoha Dairy Company and I would like to talk to you about an offer that we have for you to be our ambassador. We watched your performance during the exams and we think that with bones needing calcium, something that dairy is high in, we can strike a deal that can benefit both of our parties. Am I allowed to come into your apartment, sir?" The man questioned, to which Naruto was confused for a second before realizing what the man was asking. Now Naruto wasn't sure what was happening with the Chunin exams and if he was going to win any money, but if he wasn't, then at least, in his mind, he could use the fame that came with winning the exams and profit from it. The idea of a sponsorship was something that Naruto was not really familiar with, but he definitely liked the sounds of it in theory. What Naruto didn't notice was the look in the eyes of the man who he was letting into his house. Just from looking at the place, the man could tell that Naruto wasn't in a very good state financially, and that made him realize that he had a fair bit of power in the negotiations. The blonde felt slightly embarrassed with the way his apartment looked. He had the cheapest of chairs and he didn't even have a table. His reasoning and justification was that he never really had anyone over, that he was always out on missions and frankly had better things to do than furnish his crappy apartment. There were much more important things that he wanted to save for, like a deposit on his very own house. Now that he had something important like this happening in his house, Naruto felt very poor. If the civilian thought something of it, he didn't make a mention, but Naruto felt as if the person was silently judging him. "Okay, so what would you want me to do for this sponsorship? What would you expect of me?" Naruto questioned as he wanted to get straight to the bottom of this. Today was a busy day after all. "We would expect for you to have a photoshoot session with our photographer, which we will then use to display over our products. You will also have to endorse our products by saying a few quotes on how this particular product has made you become a better shinobi, and finally, you will not be allowed to have or even be seen near products of our competitors. That will result in immediate termination of the sponsorship," the man stated as he pointed it out to Naruto on a piece of paper holding the contract. Nodding as he understood all of this, the blonde-haired boy followed it up with another question. "Now what sort of compensation would I be getting from this sponsorship?" Naruto questioned as he knew that whilst he was unfamiliar with situations like this, there were tricks to the trade with being a ninja. "Well, my company would like to offer you a deal of $50,000 per year for 2 years. Despite the fact that he was a trained ninja and knew not to give away information, Naruto couldn't help the fact that his eyes bulged when he heard the number. That was more than what he was making now as a genin. Luckily Naruto had the sense of mind to negotiate a bit. "Well, you are the first people who have contacted me, so I am not sure," Naruto said, although he purposefully left it open so that he could let the man offer him some more money. "What about an additional signing on bonus?" he asked in a desperate attempt to save the deal. If he could sign Naruto today before he had the chance to find out what other people might be willing to offer, it could save his company a lot of money. That could net him the raise that he had been hoping for. "How much?" "The highest I would be able to offer you is $15,000 if you sign right here and now. If you refuse this, then we won't be able to offer you the same amount." Naruto wasn't too sure what to do with now that the pressure was on him for a decision. "I'll sign the deal," Naruto stated, to which he was happy as his finances significantly grew and the signing bonus would mean that Naruto was well off now. He didn't have to worry about taking missions daily to make sure that his account stayed positive. It also meant that if he saved up a bit more, he would be able to get a deposit for his own place and not have to pay off someone else's mortgage. That definitely sounded like a good idea as far as he was concerned. "Naruto Uzumaki, you are hereby summoned to the Hokage's office," the ANBU member stated as Naruto opened the door. This was something that Naruto pretty much expected since he won the Chunin exams the day before, and this probably meant that he was going to get a promotion to the rank of Chunin and then get sent out on a whole bunch of missions. Dressed in a pair of blank ninja sandals, blank pants, and a cheap, dark green t-shirt, Naruto headed to the center of town. Now that the fact that he had the Kagaya bloodline limit, the blonde-haired boy didn't see any point in wearing high-quality clothes, as he was no doubt going to put holes in them when using his kekegenkai. Now that he also had full access to his bloodline, Naruto didn't need to use kunai and shuriken, as he could make his own. It was not as if he had ever been tasked with going on a political mission, although that might now change with the offer of the daimyo on the table. He still hadn't thought that through. On one hand, he could definitely see the benefits in going there. He would no doubt get real strong, as that was what Asuma-sensei did when he was younger. If he ever wanted to make a run at becoming the Hokage, then he knew that if he made a good impression on the daimyo, then he would have a much better shot at the title. And then there was the financial aspect of becoming a guardian ninja. The job definitely paid well, as you had a constant duty to protect very important people. Sure, there were a lot of positives to becoming one of the guardian ninjas, but there were a lot of things that he was going to have to give up if he wanted the job. The most important thing that he would have to give up were the friendships and bonds that he had created. In the short space of time, for Naruto, who was an orphan, making friends in Ino and Choji along with having Asuma-sensei and Danzo-sensei were pipe dreams mere months ago. Did he really want to give up the happiness that having friends gave? Sure, they might be friends when he got back to the village, but he knew that it would never really be the same. Before the Uzumaki genin could ponder more on his future, Naruto realized that he had arrived at the Hokage's office. "Hi there, I got summoned by the ANBU." Naruto stated to the receptionist, who nodded and allowed Naruto to walk into the room. Naruto was surprised with who he saw in the room. There was someone that he wasn't surprised to see, and that was Danzo-sensei, but the other person was someone that he didn't expect to see, and if he was honest, it was someone that he didn't particularly want to see. Despite the fact that he had matured a lot since joining Team Asuma, there were still a few things that Naruto didn't like, and he was very good at holding grudges. "Good, you're here. Kakashi, I am giving you the chance to tell Naruto everything we previously discussed. It is up to you if you want to tell him it, but if you don't, I will get Asuma to do it when he gets back from his mission," Danzo stated in the low, monotone voice that oozed authority. This definitely confused Naruto when he heard this, as he wondered what it was that was so important that Kakashi had to tell him something. As far as he knew, the only connection that Kakashi and himself had with one another was the fact that he got failed by the man in the genin exam. "Naruto, I want you to meet me behind the Hokage monument, as there are a few things that we will be talking about today." Since it was coming from an elite jonin and got endorsed by one of his sensei, Naruto had no problem in following the orders. With a nod of the head, Kakashi used a shunshin and Naruto quickly followed. He would have liked to get a form of acknowledgement from Danzo about his performance at the Chunin exams, but given what he knew about the man, he shouldn't have been surprised at all, really. XXX. Once the two ninjas made their way to the secluded location, Kakashi used a jutsu taught to him by his sensei and set up a barrier. "Naruto, I would just like to say that I am very impressed with the performance you gave at the finals. You should be very proud of yourself," Kakashi said with an eye smile. "No thanks to you," Naruto muttered loud enough that the jonin heard the comment. The eye smile faded, as there were many things that Kakashi regretted in his life, and the most recent one was the fact that he passed up on the opportunity to train Naruto. "Okay, fair enough, I deserve that one. Now, before this turns into rag on Kakashi Day, there are more important matters that we need to discuss," the silver-haired man said as he used his serious tone of voice. This was something that Naruto noticed and got ready. He could potentially be going on a mission with the man in front of him, and he wanted all the details to prepare himself. "The first thing that I am happy to announce, Naruto, is that you have officially been promoted to the rank of Chunin hereby immediately. Here is your well-deserved flak jacket," Kakashi as he handed Naruto the vest. Kakashi couldn't help but unleash a full-blown smile on his face when he saw the expression on the face of his sensei's son. It was the moments like this that made Kakashi deeply regret not taking Naruto on as a student. "Thank you, I don't know what to say," Naruto replied as he tried on the jacket. It felt a bit loose, but Naruto knew that he could grow into it by gaining muscle/hitting a growth spurt. As he looked down at himself, Naruto couldn't help but think that the short t-shirt underneath looked a bit dorky, so he would need to go to Ino for some fashion advice, as much as he hated to admit it. He hoped that the positives outweighed the negatives. Admittedly, he wished it was either Asuma or Danzo who gave it to him, as they had had more involvement in his development as a shinobi. Good, now that is out of the way, we can talk about the real reason why this was set up. Naruto-kun. Naruto was a bit put off by the fact that Kakashi was using the kun suffix on his name, but he didn't mention it. Kakashi was a lot stronger than him. Naruto only wanted people that he had established a relationship with to call him that, and Kakashi wasn't one of those people. Despite all of that, there was a sinking feeling in the stomach of Naruto that told him that what he was going to hear was something that was going to have a large impact on his life. He wasn't sure if he really wanted to hear it. What I am about to tell you is related to the main reason as to why I didn't become your sensei, Naruto. Now that Kakashi had said this, Naruto's attention was solely on the man in front of him. This was one of the questions that he had been waiting to find out the answer to for a long time. How do I word this? Kakashi said more to himself rather than Naruto. The blonde picked up that this is a sensitive topic. Naruto, I assume you don't know who your parents are, do you? The eyes of Naruto immediately widened. This was not the alleyway that he expected this conversation to go down. It was a question that Naruto had long given up hope in trying to find answers to, as every time he tried to find out more information, he would just get depressed with the lack of answers. The last time he tried to find out more, Naruto discovered the fact that his family was a clan in a completely different country. That would have been okay had it not been for the fact that it had all been massacred during the Second Great Shinobi War. Now that Kakashi was bringing up topics that he had tried to keep buried for such a long time, there was a little spark of hope inside the mind of the blonde-haired boy. No. Okay, that makes things a little bit easier. When you were born, there was a decree made by the Sandaime Hokage to prevent anyone from finding out who your parents were. If word got out that your parents had a child, you would have assassins after your head for the rest of your life. With there being people out there who would be willing to kill you just to spite your parents, then there was a severe possibility that the world would be thrown into another great shinobi war. As Kakashi said this, Naruto couldn't help but gape. Just who were his parents that the world finding out about his birth could potentially send the world into a fourth great shinobi war? He didn't know of any famous Uzumaki from the bingo books or even history books outside of the Shodaime Hokage's wife. There was the fact that he felt better about his information gathering skills due to the fact that there was a law stating he couldn't find anything about his family, and it wasn't just him being shit. Naruto, I grew up and had the pleasure of knowing your parents. Your mother was a beautiful and not to mention strong woman called Kushina Uzumaki. She was the type of person who would punch first, ask questions later, but if you were on her good side, she was the kindest person you could ever ask to have as a friend. Here is a photo of her. Kakashi stated, to which Naruto took in absolutely every word the man in front of him said with open ears. When he got the photo in his hand, Naruto couldn't help but stare at the woman in the photo. Just like Kakashi had said before, she was beautiful. He had to admit he liked her eyes the most. Your father, on the other hand, was the better shinobi of the two, despite Kushina still being a jonin. That left a significantly smaller pool of people that could be his father. Naruto, there is no easy way for me to say this, so I will just come out and say it. Naruto, your father is none other than Minato Namikaze. When Naruto heard this, his head shot up and stared at Kakashi. That wasn't what he was expecting to hear at all. He didn't know how to feel, although he was saddened by the fact that his father was dead. What about my mother in all of this? Is she still alive? Naruto looked up at Kakashi with hope in his eyes, searching for any sign that his mother was still alive. He wanted to talk to her and ask her why she was not with him. Unfortunately, not Naruto. Your mother and father both died on the night that you were born because, as you know, you were born on the night of the Kyuubi attack. It was not your fault though if that went through your mind, Naruto-kun. There was something that happened that night that I cannot figure out, and the only people who do know are your parents. Curiosity filled the boy. What do you mean? What happened? I thought that the Kyuubi happened and that was it. A frown marred the face of Naruto as it seemed as if there was some foul play at hand. There was. Your mother was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, Naruto. Yet another bombshell was dropped on the boy. A wave of guilt passed through him as Naruto was instantly reminded of how he killed Gaara during the exams for the sole reason that he was a Jinchuriki. It made him feel like shit. The fact that Gaara was an unstable Jinchuriki who was hell-bent on leveling the village by unleashing the demon inside of him was missed by Naruto. The seal on the stomach of your mother became weak when she got pregnant with you, but with your father also being a seal master, there was no real issue with the seal. Someone must have come into the private room that was guarded by ANBU and did something to take your father's attention away from your mother. During that time, the person managed to break the seal and release the demon. Who was it? Naruto questioned with anger in his voice. He didn't like the idea of anyone killing his parents despite the fact that he had never met them before. That is the million-dollar question that we have been trying to find an answer to for the past 14 years. Kakashi stated out loud, although this was more to himself. Naruto was curious as to the wording of the statement. We? There was a nod from the Jonin. Yes, we. The other people who knew of your lineage all knew your parents and want to know how what happened that night happened so that we can prevent it from happening again. Who else knew who my parents were? Kakashi paused for a moment. When you look at a picture of your father, you will notice that there is a lot of similarities between you in terms of appearance. A lot of people who were around when your parents were alive can tell whose child you are now that you have displayed how skilled you are. Jiraiya, as he was your father's sensei, Sandaime, Danzo, the other two counselors, most of the clan heads, Asuma and Guy. They are the people that I can list off the top of my head at the moment, but there are probably more that have figured it out. Naruto nodded when he heard this, but then a stray thought entered his mind. Hey, if you knew my father and you were his student, then why did you refuse to be my sensei? Is it because I remind you of him? Naruto questioned with a frown on his face. From the impression he got previously in this conversation, Kakashi wasn't actually that bad of a person. Maybe he was wrong? No. Kakashi emphasized in a rare display of emotion. That is far from the truth. The actual reason is because every single person that I ever became close to has died. I didn't want you to become yet another person on that long list. Immediately, Naruto's opinion of the man dramatically changed. Gone was the anger and hatred for preventing him from graduating to that of understanding, and if he was honest with himself, a little bit of pity. Admittedly, he didn't have much experience with losing people that you cared about since he never had any to begin with, but he wished he wouldn't act like what Kakashi was doing in this situation. Judging from the person you have become under Asuma's tutelage, I'd like to think that the decision had some positives, as I don't think that I could have trained you into becoming a better shinobi. I'm not much of a sensei if you haven't been able to tell. He didn't know what kind of shape his students were in before, but they didn't seem as if they had improved that much. Not a day goes by that I don't regret the decision for you to be on my team, but I hope we can put this behind us and become friends? Kakashi asked, which it didn't take Naruto all that long to make his decision. XXX. As this was going on with Naruto, there was a meeting going on. This wasn't just any meeting though, this was one of the most important in the history of Konoha. The room was full with very important people on the shinobi side and the daimyo along with his advisors. At the current point in time, they were busy in the process of discussing who it was that was going to become the next Hokage. So, Jiraiya, will you be willing to take the position of Hokage? The daimyo questioned as he looked at one of the men he respected the most. The stories that he had heard painted the man as a very skilled shinobi. He merely shook his head. I can't. Despite the fact that I don't even want to do this, I have a spy network that I must maintain, and I won't be able to do that effectively if I am located in one position. I would suggest Tsunade, however, as I think that if I am given time to go and locate her, I will be able to convince her to come back and become the Hokage that Konoha needs in this time of struggle. The daimyo seemed to ponder this for a moment, and it was at this point in time that Danzo knew that he had to act quickly and smartly. He couldn't let Konoha be led by Tsunade. She was not the type of person that was capable of leading any village, let alone the strongest of all on the entire continent, to prosperity. No. Tsunade is not capable of leading a village. She is very much a gambler who has the poorest history when it comes to financial management. She has lost over $10 million in the past 5 years. That is not a quality that we should look for in our village leader. This is not even including the fact that the woman is essentially a missing ninja as she deserted the village in its greatest time of need. Danzo stated, which drew the ire of Jiraiya. Sure, he knew that his teammate was not perfect and neither was he, but he knew that letting the village fall in the hands of Danzo was not good for the future. This wasn't just a sentiment that Jiraiya had. It was something that the clan heads in attendance, with those being Shikaku and Hayashi, agreeing with. The man was very proactive, and that led to situations where he created enemies from nothing. Tsunade was taught the same values and morals that have been passed down from generation to generation, starting from her grandfather, the Shodaime Hokage. Jiraiya rebutted, which received a nod from the daimyo. The two looked at each other and it was clear as day that they knew what was going on. Whoever won the argument here to decide who the Hokage was going to be, would get the final say-so. But those same morals taught by your sensei have led Konoha to lose its title as the strongest ninja village to both Kumo and Iwa at the moment. If Hiruzen had killed Orochimaru 10 years ago when he had the chance, then there never would have been an invasion. A more proactive approach would have saved the lives of many people here yesterday. An eye of Jiraiya twitched. And you think that your proactive approach, as you call it, will be so much better? I sure as hell don't remember Sensei creating anywhere near as many enemies in the world. Who want our blood is what you have done over the years. You might be an okay leader for the short term, but for the long term you will create too many enemies that will form an alliance and start another war against us, one which we will lose. Plus, I don't exactly remember seeing any of your Orochi shinobi out there on the battlefield protecting the people. It was this that caused for everyone to stare at Danzo. Danzo gritted his teeth and paused for a moment, and it was this that gave Jiraiya the belief that he was winning the argument. He knew of the opinion that many held of him, and he knew that it wasn't positive. The Jonin Council would never approve him either, so the veteran ninja decided to change his tune. I never said that I was running for the position of Hokage, now did I? The second that Danzo said this, it threw everyone in the room for a loop. This was news to everyone, as it was known that Danzo was someone who once vied for the position of Hokage back when the Sandaime was being selected. To hear him state that he was not going for the position now that Hiruzen was dead was definitely surprising. The position of Hokage is the most crucial appointment for the village. It is a position that needs stability, and one of the major reasons why Konoha has stayed at the top for a long period of time is the fact that we have not changed Kages anywhere near as frequently as other hidden villages. Tsunade is too old to be a serious long-term candidate. We need someone younger than her to lead the village into prosperity. Danzo stated, to which Hayashi nodded as he agreed that someone younger would be better long-term, as the constant change in leadership would do no good. Then who would you suggest becomes the Hokage? Kakashi, he is the student of the late Minato Namikaze. The daimyo suggested, as he thought that Kakashi was a reputable man. This time it wasn't Danzo or Jiraiya who spoke up, it was Hayashi. No, whilst Kakashi is a very good shinobi, there is a lot to question his mentality. He wouldn't actively try and destroy Konoha, but is showing signs that he has lost a lot of determination and focus. If Inoichi was to run a psyche evaluation on him, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he is suffering from depression. They are not the qualities a leader should have. As much as they didn't want to admit it, Jiraiya and Shikaku both agreed on the opinion voiced by the Hyuga clan leader. It is unfortunate that Minato is not with us anymore. He would be the perfect candidate, as he is the highly skilled shinobi for the job, who has the mindset required, and age isn't an issue. Whilst there are people from his generation who could lead the village if absolutely necessary, there is no one who stands out as a clear Hokage. Shikaku and Hayashi are the best candidates for that generation, but both have other duties to the village. The daimyo took this to heart. So are you suggesting that we go for someone in the same generation as Kakashi, like a Sumakuen or that green guy? This time it was Shikaku, who had previously been quiet, spoke up. No. Whilst Guy definitely has the skills to be the Hokage, he is not entirely there mentally. Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. As for Asuma, he has the mentality to become the Hokage that Konoha needs, but he is simply not strong enough to strike fear into enemies and prevent wars with just his name. I wouldn't feel comfortable having either one of them as the Hokage, although if I had to choose one, I would go with Asuma. None of the people that being mentioned are striking you with confidence. Is there someone else that has not been mentioned yet? The daimyo questioned as he was getting a little bit annoyed at the fact that they were not coming to any conclusions. Now Danzo thought to himself as he knew that there was never going to be a better time to ensure the safety of the village that he loved. This might be a controversial choice, but what about doing something completely left field? The newest generation has 3 ninjas in it that are each capable of reaching the same skill level as Sarutobi in his prime if given the right environment to learn. We as the elder ninjas would be able to guide them into becoming a Kage with the proper training and handling the political side of things until the person is capable of making decisions. Whilst this would leave us weaker in the short term, I can see this working in the long term if everything goes to plan and the ninja fills out every bit of potential he has. That is an awful lot of pressure to put on someone. What happens if the person in question doesn't ever eventuate into the Kage that Konoha needs? Will we not just be in an even worse position? Shikako stated, which garnered many nods of agreement. Then we could have more than one candidate from the young generation. Sasuke Uchiha, Konohamaru Sarutobi, and Naruto Uzumaki all show signs of having the potential to be what Konoha needs for a Kage. There would be an official group of adjudicators who would judge the performances of the shinobi in question, and whoever outperforms his peers will be the person who gets the title. As he was saying this, Danzo was confident that he already knew the winner of this outcome. Ooh, I did like Naruto when I met him. He looks like his father but certainly doesn't act like him. Yes, I like this idea as none of the other candidates are capable or willing to take on the role. There will be a form of selection criteria to decide who the best candidate is for the position. This won't just be a combat situation between all 3 of them, as there will be a multitude of aspects that go into this report, such as mission reports, statements from superiors and subordinates on missions, academic testing, and more. I believe that a 6-month time frame is an adequate period of time to decide. I will be back in Konoha then to see the results myself and crown a new Kage. Send my wishes onto each of the candidates. Jiraiya didn't know what to think of this new development, but he was saddened by the fact that he had no excuse to go and visit his home. What none of the people in the room realized was that underneath all of those bandages, there was a red eye spinning like crazy. XXX. Unaware of what was going on in the upper echelons of Konoha's hierarchy, Naruto found himself in a familiar place with familiar faces. It was the Team 7 training grounds, and he was there with Ino and Choji. Hey guys, how's it going? I hope everything went alright with the invasion and none of you guys got hurt? I mean, I passed out pretty early, haha. Naruto couldn't help but blush as he rubbed the back of his head. Ino merely brushed it off to the side. Don't worry, Naruto, I mean, it is pretty hard to match the awesomeness of Choji and myself. There was a smirk on her face, but she didn't mean anything harmful by the comment. You wish jellyfish. Who even says that? Yeah, well, shut up. The grin that framed the face of Ino was one that Naruto couldn't help but stare at for a bit. He didn't want to sound like a bitch or anything, but he thought that the most attractive thing about her was her eyes. He quickly turned to Choji as he noticed that there was a bit of heat going to his cheeks. Thankfully for Naruto, Ino didn't notice this. Oh, congrats on the promotion to Chunin, Naruto. Choji said as he realized what it was that Naruto was wearing. When Choji said this, Ino also took note of Naruto's appearance and saw the eyesore that was Naruto. You yuck, what are you wearing? I thought that had some sort of fashion sense, but I guess that I was wrong. Sure, even he knew that what he was wearing now wasn't the best looking, but honestly, was the reaction from Ino really all that necessary? He didn't think so. Take off that t-shirt and just wear the flak jacket for now. You can at least look halfway decent until you get home and change into some proper clothes. Ignoring the bitchy tone that it came along with, Naruto did just that. He unzipped the Chunin vest that he was wearing and then took it off. This was fine for Ino as it was what she expected. What she didn't expect was for Naruto to take off his shirt as well. It gave the blonde-haired girl the chance to have an elongated look at a boy in her age range that was fairly attractive. He was different from Sasuke, who had very little muscle on his body and used his chakra to great effect. Naruto instead had a large amount of muscle for someone his age, and the only person who had more than him in his age range was Choji. What was even more impressive was that because of the bloodline that Naruto had, it made his bones larger and thus he required more muscle to stand out. Gone was the anorexic-looking boy, as Naruto now had developed enough muscle and a little bit more fat so that he was 3 clothing sizes bigger in the space of 6 months when you included his growth spurt. Ino couldn't help it as her pupils dilated, as she definitely liked what she saw. Her focus on her teammate was broken when Naruto zipped up the jacket, and it prevented Ino from staring at his abs. "Yeah, suck shit, Ino. You tease me all the time, so it's finally good to get back at you. I'll have to do this more often," Naruto thought as he was not as oblivious as he once was. "So what did you guys call me out here for anyway?" Naruto questioned as he decided to get down to the bottom of what they wanted to speak with him about. Sure, he didn't mind spending time with his teammates, but there were a lot of things on his mind at the moment. He still had to come to terms with the fact that he was the son of the late Yondaime Hokage. "Well, we just wanted to talk to you about the offer you got to go and join the Guardian Ninja from the Fire Daimyo," Ino said with a cheerful grin on her face. "Oh, they want to know if I have made a decision." The smile that was on his face, it dimmed slightly, not that Choji or Ino noticed it. It was a tough decision that would change his life forever. He had thought about it between the time from signing the sponsorship to meeting Kakashi, and both sides had heavy pros and cons, but he'd come to a decision. He had declined the offer. "Yeah, I decided to turn it down because I want to be with my friends. Sure, moving to Tokyo and being the daimyo's guardian would be very beneficial for me and it would pay extremely well, but I realized that I don't want to lose what I have spent so much time building these past 6 months. I didn't really have any friends since my graduation, and spending time on Team Asuma with you guys has been the happiest times of my life," Naruto said with an awkward chuckle at the end, as he didn't like admitting his feelings because he thought it wasn't manly. The cheerful smile on the face of Ino and Choji immediately dropped when they heard this, and it was something that Naruto noticed. The eyes of the Yamanaka girl even started watering when she heard how Naruto felt about the team. She truly saw Naruto as a member of Team 10 and not just Shikamaru's replacement. "What, we thought you were going to take the offer?" Ino shouted as she let her emotions get the best of her when she replied in a slightly hostile tone of voice. Naruto heard this. "Well, what should I have done, huh? Did you want me to take the position so you guys could get rid of me because I'm the replacement for Shikamaru and not actually your friend?" When he said this, tears started falling down the face of Ino, and despite how angry he was, Naruto felt like the biggest piece of shit when he saw that he made Ino cry. Unfortunately, at this point in time, he had too much pride to be able to say he was sorry. "No. You were never that. Don't you dare ever think of yourself as that. I won't allow it. Sure, Choji and I were dealing with his death at the beginning, but after we got to know you, we never saw you as that." To see the proud and strong girl that was Ino sniffling and wiping tears onto the sleeve of her shirt was something that would forever be etched into the memory of Naruto, and he vowed internally to never allow it to happen again. Choji was angry at the response that Naruto gave for a multitude of reasons. "No. I don't see you as my teammate, Naruto. I see you as my friend. No one, not even Shikamaru, was able to make me as confident as what you have in my fighting abilities. Plus, you don't have to be a jerk about it," Choji replied as he saw what was happening to Ino. "Well, I thought that you guys would like the fact that I chose to stay here with you guys. Fuck me for thinking that. Why aren't you too happy then that I am staying here?" Naruto responded, although this time there was a little bit less heat to his words. Ino had to clear the lump in her throat before she spoke up. "Because we got the same offer from the daimyo after you were passed out," Ino shouted out as she went back to crying when she finished saying this. There was a sense of foreboding in Naruto as he had a feeling as to where this was going, and he didn't like the sounds of it. "No, no. Please tell me that you said no," Naruto desperately questioned, and he stared into the eyes of his two teammates. None of them could look him in the eyes and settled for staring at the ground. It was Choji who had the courage to reply. "When you were asleep, the daimyo was impressed with us and offered each of us individually the opportunity to join the Guardian Ninjas. We spoke it over with our parents and they agreed that taking this would be the best thing for our careers as shinobi. The moment that Naruto heard this, there was a stabbing pain in his chest. The news almost made him fall down onto the ground. How could you? Obviously it seems we know who value friendships more. The reason why you got so angry at me is because you want to ease the guilt on your respective consciousness. How could you say those things? We honestly thought that you would be taking the position, so we wanted to join you. We know how much you love money as you never stop talking about it. We were willing to leave our families to join you in the capital, don't you know how that feels? Ino shouted back, not really thinking her words through. There was a hitch in both Choji's and Naruto's breath. Choji understood what was going through the mind of Naruto. He knew this wasn't going to be pretty. Of course I fucking wouldn't. I am fucking orphan if you haven't already realized. Fuck this. I hope you guys have the time of your lives over there in the capital whilst I am having fun with all of my friends. Oh wait, I don't have any because they are all leaving me. Naruto furiously shouted towards Ino and Choji before turning around to use a Katan Shunshin. As he did this, tears started to fall down his cheeks. During all of this, it never got out that both Choji and Ino had been promoted to the rank of Chunin. It was safe to say that after the previous day, Naruto Uzumaki didn't get much sleep at all. So many things happened the day before and it was one stressful situation after another for the blonde. It was this which caused Naruto to revert to his favorite pastime to cure stress. That was training, as it was the only thing that allowed Naruto to tune everything else out around him and focus on bettering himself. The iron would never lie to him, it wouldn't befriend him only to leave 6 months later. It was always there and would always continue to be there. With it being an autumn morning, Naruto wanted to make the most of his training session and practice 2 different skills at once. This was why Naruto was in a pair of compression shorts which borderline could be called undies. The next step in fire manipulation that he knew of was to use Katan chakra to manually regulate his body temperature. Obviously, the colder he was, the more challenging it was going to be, but Naruto was determined to make this work. The added motivation of having winter soon approaching was that if he got this down pat, he could go swimming all year round. This was an advanced skill and he was not expecting to get it down pat straight away, but that was what the training was for. He was going to build up a sweat to counterbalance his clothing situation or lack thereof. Deciding that he would go for a warm-up jog around the village, Naruto set off to hopefully clear his head. 5 kilometers into his jog and Naruto spotted the normally energetic man guy standing solemnly at a building. Naruto didn't think much of it as he kept jogging. Guy did, however, as he turned around when he felt the chakra of someone else nearby. When he turned around he spotted none other than the winner of the Chunin exams. Eager to find out some more, Guy started jogging towards Naruto. Soon he caught up to the boy. Yash! Naruto-kun, you displayed a youthful performance during the Chunin exams. Guy said in usual Guy fashion, which was to say it loud and proud. Naruto didn't know what to say. You're the sensei of Lee, Tenten, and Niji, correct? Naruto questioned. He regretted the question as he noticed a look of pain that went over the man's face when he said this. It was then that Naruto remembered the fact that Lee had the very bad injury at the hands of Gaara. Yes, Naruto-kun, I am the mighty green beast Might Guy. As he said this, he held up his hand and posed with the biggest smile you could imagine. So have you received your promotion yet, Naruto-kun? This threw the blonde-haired boy for a loop. How did Guy know about his promotion, he wondered. Seeing the look on the face of Naruto, Guy elaborated. Yash, Naruto-kun. A performance like that during the Chunin exams is one that demands a promotion. Grin appeared on the face of Naruto as he heard this. It was nice to get recognition from your superiors on your performances. It was a good gauge for Naruto in his quest to become an insanely strong shinobi. Oh, thank you, yeah, I did get my promotion yesterday from Kakashi since Asuma-sensei was out on a mission. Look of understanding appeared on the face of Guy as he heard this. He hoped the two of them patched up their differences as he could see that Naruto harbored some grudges about the genin exam. Did you patch up your disagreements with Kakashi-san, Naruto-kun? Naruto looked at Guy for a moment. Given the fact that the man said earlier during the preliminaries that Kakashi and himself were eternal rivals and knew about the exam, Guy would know a whole lot more. Yes, Kakashi told me why he didn't take me on as a student when I passed the exam. After that we sorted out everything. Guy looked at Naruto for a little bit, which made him a bit uncomfortable. I see. I wasn't sure now that the Sandaime was dead whether or not that rule would be overturned. Guy said, purposefully leaving him an escape just in case Naruto didn't know what he was talking about. Kakashi told me yesterday that you knew. Yes, it was never my place to say as I had no connection to you other than the fact that I am friends with Kakashi. By the way, Naruto, I must admit I am very surprised that you have the Kagaya bloodline limit. I thought that it was extinct to the world. Guy said, still in a tone of voice that conveyed his seriousness. It was different to see compared to his normal state. Yeah, I have no idea how I got it, although I am definitely not complaining. It was what allowed me to kill Gaara, as I think the surprise effect definitely helped. Guy's breath hitched. Yes, Naruto. Whilst I know killing is bad and should only be used as a last resort measure, seeing the person who injured Lee so badly being prevented from hurting anyone else does fill me with satisfaction. Guy stated slightly softer than normal. The second that Lee was mentioned, Naruto felt bad for the person who he used to call a friend. He guessed he couldn't really call himself that as he hadn't visited him despite the fact that he was in hospital for the past month. Naruto made a mental note to go and see Lee after he was done with his training. So how's Lee doing? I never got to find out what was wrong with him medically speaking, of course. Guy paused for a moment as this was no doubt tough for him to talk about. They say that he might never be able to be a shinobi again because the damage. When Naruto heard this, he felt even worse. There are grains of sand from the attack that crushed part of his body made it so that bone fragments were embedded into his spinal column. It's a shame that Lee doesn't have my bloodline because instead of having to fix his existing skeletal structure, he could just grow a new one. The second that Naruto said that, it was as if a light bulb went off inside the head of Guy. There was a new avenue that was now open to the doctors that were previously shut off. Maybe with the use of Naruto's bloodline, they could resolve the issues that Lee had? Yash Naruto-kun. I have just thought that maybe you and your bloodline can help Lee get better. We would have to go and speak to the medical ninjas and find out, but we might be able to use your abilities to save Lee. Naruto didn't think twice. He would do whatever it took if it meant that Lee would be back to normal. Yes, I would be happy to help out however I can. Guy stopped, which caused Naruto to stop. Guy then surprised Naruto by bowing to him. Thank you, Naruto-kun, you have no idea how much this means to me. If there is anything else that I can do to help, let me know. The newly minted Chunin felt weird with the elite Jonin bowing to him. You don't have to do that, Guy. Actually, now that you mention it, my taijutsu doesn't have a definitive taijutsu style as it is, but Asuma and Danzo-sensei have tried to help out as much as they could. It would be nice to get training from someone who specializes in taijutsu. Faster than he could even follow, Guy was standing up straight from bowing. Yash Naruto-kun. I would be happy to help you in your taijutsu training. I was even going to request to spar with you as I have never met a dead bone pulse user. Guy said in usual Guy fashion before turning back into serious mode. Although Naruto, I am not sure what your relationship is with Danzo and I won't tell you how to live your life, but be careful around him. This was something that intrigued Naruto as up until now, he had never heard anything bad about Danzo. It would be nice to have another opinion on the man. What do you mean? As far as he was concerned, Danzo was a solid person. Sure, he was strict, but that didn't mean you were a bad person. As I said before, Naruto-kun, I will let you make your own decisions on him, but back in the day, Sandaime-sama was known as the light and Danzo was known as the bad. He has had his hand in some shady dealings in the past. Naruto nodded when he heard this. Thanks for that, for now he has done nothing bad to me, but I will keep an eye out. As Naruto finished speaking, bones started coming out of his body in every different direction. Now let's get this fight underway, Naruto said with a grin on his face. XXX. Sasuke Uchiha walked into the Hokage's office wondering why it was that he had been called in here. What was even more confusing was the fact that there were quite a few other people in the room. He kind of had an inkling as to what this was about, and that was increased when he saw that Naruto kid along with Konohamaru. Admittedly, he wasn't sure if he had done enough to earn the promotion. He hoped that he got lucky though. As I am sure you will all find out in the future, time is critical, so I will not mince my words here. Asuma can fill in the rest of the blanks after I have said what I have to say. The three nodded at this. Right, due to military law in action, jonin such as myself are able to promote promising ninjas to the rank of chunin. Due to the actions of Tsunegekure and Otogekure, Konoha needs as many ninjas as possible. You three in particular have shown that you have the potential to lead on missions and you have the skills to back that up. Let me make this clear though, if we were not at war, some of you would not be getting these promotions. It stung a little bit for Konohamaru and Sasuke when they heard this, as they were not earning their promotions by merit but by chance circumstances. For Naruto, he didn't care as he already had his promotion. He knew that he earned it. Like with every shinobi until the day that they die, there are skill sets that you need to work on if you want to be able to progress past this point. You will be going on tougher missions, but very rarely will you be leading missions as you are still fresh from your promotion. Danzo stated, to which they all nodded. It was all they could really ask for at this point. With that being said, Kakashi, hand your students their flak jackets. Konohamaru let out a cry of jubilation when this was stated, as he was finally one step closer to his dream of becoming the Hokage. Boy, was he in for a rude surprise when he found out why he was really here. Sasuke was a bit more observant than his teammate. Not that I am complaining, but why didn't Naruto get a vest? I mean, he did win the Chunin exams after all. Sasuke wasn't sure if he liked the guy or not. Whilst he was defeated by not just Naruto but also someone around his age, it meant that there was someone that he could now compare himself to and spar with, as he believed himself to be stronger than Konohamaru. It would help him on his quest to kill that man. It was Asuma who spoke up this time. Naruto already received his promotion to Chunin a couple of days ago. He is here because Danzo-sama has something else to say to you three genin. Yes, I will now be getting to the real reason as to why I have called you three here. During one of the discussions to see who would become the next Hokage with the Fire Daimyo, it was decided that there was no one that was really suitable for the permission, and those that were didn't want it. What? How could anyone not want to become the Hokage? Konohamaru loudly stated with confusion in his voice. Whilst he did share the same sentiment as the boy, he didn't like insubordination to say the least, and now was not the time and place. Silence was all that Danzo needed to say. It might have helped mentioning that he used killing intent along with the words. Needless to say, Konoha was in a bit of a bind, as we need a military leader for the future, as there potentially could be the start of the Fourth Great Shinobi War given the invasion and our perceived weakness. It is why Jiraiya is here in the village at the moment and not out elsewhere. Danzo stated. He didn't like long-winded speeches, but since what he was saying now would shape the future of Konoha, he needed to make sure that everything he said was pinpoint accurate. So Danzo-sensei, not that I don't mind listening to this, but what does this have to do with us? Danzo-sensei? Maybe if I ask this man here to train me, I can finally get the power to defeat Itachi. Sasuke thought in his head as picked up on his new rival. He wasn't sure how strong Naruto was before he met this man, but surely Danzo would make him progress faster than what he already was. After a suggestion, the Fire Daimyo was willing to try something new. When Danzo said this, the eyes of all three Chunin in front of him lit up and paid keen attention to what he had to say. The three of you were listed as the current batch of this generation who have the most potential to become worthy of being a Hokage. The council along with the daimyo have officially decided to allow the three of you to compete for the position of Hokage. Danzo paused for a moment to let this sink in. What do you mean? Konohamaru passionately demanded information, as it was his lifelong goal to become the Hokage. There was never a time beforehand where he had paid more attention. Konohamaru was hanging off every word that Danzo said. There will be a 6-month trial period where the three of you will get training in the various skill sets that are required to become the Hokage. At the end of the 6-month period, you will each be judged in various ways and the person who performs the best will be given the title. Of course, with this being such a crucial position, if none of you meet the high standard that will be set, then despite winning the competition, you will not become the Hokage. The eyes of all three Chunin went steely with determination, each with their own reasons. Sasuke knew that all of the Hokages were at the same level as Itachi, and if he was able to get the same training as someone like say Minato Namikaze. Ever since he was born, Konohamaru decided that it wanted to be just like his grandfather, and to do that, he would need to become the Hokage. If one of the others got the position, then he knew that he would be waiting a long time for the job to become available again. Naruto, on the other hand, was slightly different. He wasn't sure whether or not he actually wanted the position of Hokage. He didn't specifically know what the position entailed, but he knew that he wanted to train and get strong. As far as he was concerned, training to become the Hokage was going to be tough, and hopefully his skills would increase dramatically. At least by the end of the 6 months, if he didn't want it, he could turn it down. Now, I have to go to a meeting, but Kakashi and Asuma here will explain to you the finer details of this, Danzo said before he got up out of the chair and walked over to the door. There will be some form of pre-planned training down the track, but as of this current moment nothing has been set up. This means that you will need to make arrangements individually as to progressing your training. Now that you are Chunin, you don't have exclusive senseis. If either Konohamaru or Sasuke want help from me, I will be happy to provide it, but I won't divulge any information on what the other candidates are doing. During this time period, each of you will be expected to go on missions, but because of the nature of your other work, you will be going on less missions than your counterparts to give you time to train for the future. You are free to do whatever you feel will aid you the most outside of sabotaging your competitors. When Asuma finished, Kakashi continued on. Yes, you three will be going on missions which are more difficult than what your average newly minted Chunin will be going on, and you won't be going on them with the safety of myself, or in your case Naruto, Asuma, there to bail you out of trouble. Another thing is that you will be judged over all of the 6 months and not just the final exams. You will not be told when you are getting judged, and you will not be told how you are getting judged, thus meaning you will have to put your best foot forward on every single occasion. It was a lot to take in for the Chunins, but they knew that they had to do it, or otherwise the others would get an advantage in the competition, and that was not acceptable. Finally, this is all an S-class secret, so that if you mention any of this to anyone other than those present inside this room, you will be immediately executed, no question. This is a matter of village security, as other villages could attack us during this transitional time frame. We want to give off the impression that we are stronger than what we actually are. XXX. Day after digesting all of the information on how he was now in the running to become the future Hokage of Konoha, Naruto found himself in the torture and interrogation labs. Thankfully for his sanity, he didn't have to meet with Inoichi. Instead, he got to meet with Ibiki. After explaining to the man his whole predicament with Rock Lee, and thus getting told by doctors that he would need some practice creating new bones with his bloodline and other people, Naruto decided that there was only one place he could go. He would much rather practice on people who are prisoners of war than practice on innocent civilians. After 3 hours later, Naruto had finally decided that he had spent enough time at the labs and decided that he needed a change of pace. There was only so much time that you could spend studying without wanting to neck yourself. On his way out, Naruto decided that he would treat himself to some food. Sure, he could make himself something, but that didn't taste as good as when someone else made it for him. This was the reason why Naruto found himself at the barbecue restaurant that his former team frequented so much. Whilst the meal was soured by the fact that he was there by himself, he had to admit that the place did know how to cook quality meat. When he decided to exit the place, Naruto was met by someone he did not expect to see. It wasn't as if this meeting was not welcomed, he was just surprised. Standing there in front of him was none other than one of his rivals for the position of Hokage. "Are you busy?" Sasuke questioned in a blunt as always fashion. "No, why?" Naruto responded back, preparing himself just in case he was being asked to go on a mission. It seemed as if Sasuke had trouble forming what he wanted to say next, as there was an elongated pause from the raven-haired ninja. "I want to spar with you?" The second that he said this, Naruto looked weirdly back at him. It made Sasuke elaborate rather quickly. It is hard to find people who are in my age bracket that are decent shinobi. The fact that Sasuke lost to Naruto went unspoken. Naruto merely raised an eyebrow. He internally chuckled at the wording that Sasuke used. Now though that he was freely able to use his bloodline, he wanted a bit more practice in using it in combat situations. That and the fact that he had some energy to burn meant that he was down for this. Sure, so where do you want to do this? Training Ground 7? Naruto merely nodded at that. XXX. How are you able to use your fire jutsu so much better than me? Sasuke raged more at himself as he knew that the Grand Fireball was a jutsu that was a famous jutsu of the Uchiha clan, and yet, here Naruto was using it much better than he was. The problem with this was the fact that he had learnt that Naruto only started learning fire ninjutsus about a year ago whilst he had been practicing for so long. It looks like you're forcing it. When I use a jutsu, it feels like it's natural. It looks like you pause for half a second just before you use the jutsu. Is fire even your dominant element? Naruto questioned as he dodged the incoming punch from Sasuke. He immediately countered with a sweeping leg kick that Sasuke jumped over. What do you mean dominant element? Sasuke grunted as he didn't lose focus on the fight. With Naruto using his bloodline limit, it made the fight that much harder. That was exactly what Sasuke wanted though, as he wanted the toughest challenge to prepare himself for Itachi. Oh, well that explains it. Everyone has a natural affinity for a certain element. If you are say a fire user, water jutsus will be hard for you. I bet your problem is that you're using jutsus not from your elemental tree. Naruto replied as he managed to cut Sasuke on the arm with one of his bones. TCH figures. Sasuke said more so to himself than Naruto. He didn't like it when he wasn't in the know. It was just like not being strong enough for Sasuke. He felt as this was a failure on his behalf. The fact that if he had paid attention in class he would have known this went unspoken. Well, how would I go about finding out what my affinity is? Sasuke grunted as he managed to get his third punch on Naruto. Well, luckily for you Sasuke-kun, that is where I come in. As this was said, there was a shunshin right in the middle of the pair of chunin fighting. Kakashi blocked both attacks and stood between them. Naruto and Sasuke shared the same thought. Show off. How long have you been here? Naruto asked. He thought the two of them were alone. Grin formed under the mask of Kakashi. I've been watching you two since you left that restaurant. The deadpan looks Naruto and Sasuke gave him made Kakashi continue to speak. Luckily for you two, Sasuke, here is this. At this point in time, Kakashi pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket and gave it over to the boy. The raven-haired Uchiha looked at curiously. He didn't know what he was supposed to do with it. Channel some chakra into it. Depending on the reaction to your chakra, the paper will tell me what chakra nature you have. Why didn't we do this earlier? I could have been getting stronger, quicker. When Sasuke said this, Naruto couldn't help but stare at Sasuke's lack of manners. Even he thought it was bad, and this was coming from someone who hadn't had any parents to teach him what manners are. Kakashi, I smiled, but if you knew him for long enough, you would have been able to tell that he was annoyed. I thought that the oh-so-precious Uchiha would already know what his affinity was given that he is such a prodigy. Just channel some chakra into the paper. As per the hunch that Kakashi had, Sasuke's piece of paper turned into a tight little ball. So what does this mean? Sasuke questioned as he was internally cursing at himself for the mere fact that he didn't pay attention in class. If he knew this, then he would be able to go home and practice his newfound skill set. Well, it means that you get to learn new jutsu. As he said this, Kakashi created a shadow clone. Sasuke, I want you to go with my clone and I will teach you a couple of lightning jutsus. The Uchiha didn't care that much about the fact that his fight with Naruto got interrupted. He wanted to learn new jutsus and bridge the gap with Itachi. The fact that Naruto was winning was left unsaid. Now that he is away, Naruto, there is something that I want to teach you which I didn't want Sasuke watching. This is a jutsu which your father created, and for someone who is a close-range fighter such as yourself, I think this will be a jutsu that you will make the most out of. Ever since learning who his parents were, Naruto spent most of his time with Kakashi learning more and more about his parents. This definitely had the attention of Naruto, as he wanted to have a link to his father in more than just appearance and mannerisms. It was here that Kakashi threw a balloon at Naruto. This confused the hell out of the blonde. That there is the first step to mastering the Rasengan. Even if he wasn't the son of the fourth Hokage, Naruto would have known the name of the jutsu. Alongside the Hiraishin, it was folklore in Konoha, and it was always a question in a game of 20 questions. There are 3 steps to completing the Rasengan, but we won't bother with them until you have learnt the previous step. One thing you might not actually realize though is that the Rasengan itself is an incomplete jutsu. Indeed, when this was said to Naruto, the blonde-haired boy raised an eyebrow. Minato-sensei developed the Rasengan into the pinnacle of natureless chakra manipulation. He had the intent to then combine it with his affinity, but sadly he never got the chance. He hoped that one day, you would be able to complete the jutsu for him by adding in your affinity to it. A grin appeared on the face of Naruto when he heard this, as he couldn't help but swell with pride. To know that his parents had that much unconditional faith in him was surprising, but definitely not something that he minded at all. Having just completed his B-rank mission to T-Country, it was decided on the mission that the mission report would be done by the newest member of the team, which just so happened to be none other than Naruto. So there he was, standing in front of Danzo giving the mission report in how he managed to kill 2 bandits whilst his teammates managed to kill a chunin. The escort of the merchant and his goods to the south went without any casualties. I am pleased to hear that the mission was successful, Naruto-kun. Now before you go, there is one more thing that I want to discuss with you. When Danzo said this, Naruto got nervous. From what he had heard, in situations like this, there was nothing good that his sensei would have to say. Despite this, Naruto had enough pride to take whatever it was and not back down. Due to the fragile alliance that is still being held in place with Suna for their invasion, we have received some items from their village which will be of great benefit. Danzo stated as his lone eye stared at Naruto. The blonde-haired chunin had to admit, he was curious to see what his sensei looked like underneath all of those bandages. Naruto paused for a second. Obviously, whatever this benefit was, it had something to do with himself. Asking about whatever it was would no doubt make Danzo look down on him for asking a stupid question. It was clear to Naruto that Danzo was getting there. Sorry for asking, but why are we still allied with Suna? I mean, they broke their alliance with us by attempting to invade Konoha. The interim Hokage was actually glad Naruto was asking questions like this. The whole reason why he had set up the selection criteria for the Hokage position was so that Naruto could be manipulated into the perfect Hokage that Konoha needed. Suna is weak at the moment, too weak. If Konoha was to prevent the alliance from happening, then Kumo and IWA would take advantage of the situation. They would take out Suna and then have the positional advantage to launch attacks onto Fire Country from 2 separate directions. We cannot allow this to happen. Once Konoha is strong enough to fend off advances from Kumogakure and Iwagakure, then we will void the agreement from Sunagakure. Seeing that Naruto comprehended this, Danzo continued on. As part of the agreement, Konoha demanded the summoning contract, which was used by the Shodaime Kazekage. They were unwilling, of course, but because of their terrible bargaining position, they had no choice but to hand over the summoning scroll. As Danzo said this, he rolled out the large contract that was on the table in front of him. Naruto looked at it with awe, as he had never seen anything like it before. Patience was something that Danzo wasn't the best with. Sign the contract in blood. There is work that needs to be done, and you can practice this in your own time. Naruto was a bit annoyed with the way he was brushed off. Pushing that to the side for a bit, Naruto looked at the contract and noticed how said which hand seals to use. After committing that to memory, Naruto signed the contract in blood. Thank you, Danzo-sensei. I know how much summoning contracts can enhance a ninja, so I promise that I will make the most of this. See to it that you do. Danzo replied with his bland tone of voice, which Naruto took the cue to leave the room. XXX. From the knowledge that he had garnered during his time spent at the academy, Naruto knew that the summoning jutsu took a whole load of chakra. This meant that he actually had to wait until the next day until he had recovered enough so that he could use the jutsu. Now that he was outside the borders of Konoha in one of the training grounds, Naruto prepared himself. The boy went through the hand seals and channeled all of the chakra in his body bar a small amount through the jutsu. It was the first time that he had used so much chakra in one go, and it left the Chunin with sweat dripping down his brow and gasping for air. Due to the nature of the jutsu, Naruto watched as there was a large plume of smoke that was quickly replaced by the largest sand cloud he had seen, and that was considering the fact that he had fought Gaara. What appeared when this sand went away was by far the biggest scorpion that he had ever seen. In front of him was a hexapital beige/brown scorpion that had a large green gem right in the center of its forehead. That wasn't the part that instilled fear into Naruto though. It was the glowing green pincers and stinger. He didn't know what they did, and he didn't exactly want to find out. The snakes that he saw out of the corner of his eye when he was escorting the daimyo were about 2/3 the size of this scorpion. This was so much so that he even voiced his opinion. Whoa! The giant scorpion looked down at the boy who had just summoned him. He had to admit, given the age of what the shinobi looked, it was pretty impressive that he was able to summon the boss and have some chakra left over. Despite this, he could help but chuckle at the response given. You were expecting Sandy Claws? In spite of the fact that he knew he was in a serious situation, Naruto chuckled. Those claws that this scorpion had were just over triple the height of Naruto. It took a few seconds for Naruto to regain his composure as he was still marveling at the sight of the scorpion in front of him. I was given a summoning contract to sign, but I was never told what animal summon it was tied to. I guess I was just surprised and not sure what to expect. Naruto replied. The scorpion seemed to accept this for a moment and then narrowed his gaze down onto the boy. This is not Sunigake. Tell me, where am I and how did you manage to sign this contract? Not wanting to anger this giant in front of him, Naruto spoke. You are on the outskirts of Konoha. There was a major skirmish between the villages between Konoha and Sunigake. This started by an invasion from Suna, and since Konoha won, one of the demands that was made was to hand over your summoning contract. The leader in charge saw fit for me to sign the contract. I see. Just because you have signed the contract doesn't mean we will acknowledge you, let alone fight alongside you in battle. You must pass a series of tests, Naruto. With that said, all sign of the scorpion and Naruto disappeared in a cloud of smoke. XXX. After packing some food, Naruto headed out to the training ground 7. It was here that he had been spending a fair amount of his time. With Asuma constantly going out on missions and his two teammates out on missions, Naruto didn't have a lot of people that he could socialize with on a consistent basis. It was here where Sasuke, of all people, now that he had gotten to know him, offered up a solution. The solution was that the two of them would train together. Of course, Naruto knew that there was the very real chance that Sasuke was solely using this for spying on him in the quest to become the Hokage. To be honest, this didn't really bother Naruto all that much. Originally, the blonde Chunin was used to long bouts of solitude, but given the last few months, he had gotten used to having the company of people that he could talk to. Being an orphan and everything that came with that, Naruto didn't really have anyone else that he could talk to, so he didn't mind if Sasuke was using him as a measuring stick in his quest to kill Itachi. It gave the blonde the chance to spend time with some people his own age, and that was worth its weight in gold. Week into the arrangement that both Naruto and Sasuke had set up, in which they would arrive at the training ground at 6 a.m., Konohamaru found out about the arrangement. He was not too pleased, to say the least, as he was determined to not let any of his rivals gain an advantage over him. After all, his quest was to become the Hokage. Konohamaru self-approved the invite that he had given himself to attend this training session. It was then that he was quite disappointed. He didn't know what to expect, but he expected there to be ruthless sparring day in and day out. It would be a much different type of workout compared to the one that he was currently used to. That in comparison was severely mind-numbing, as Ebisu-sensei was forcing Konohamaru to go through all of the basics that he had missed out on before. Of course, he knew that this was a must. When his grandfather was alive, Hiruzen specifically told Konohamaru that the month-long training that they would be doing would focus on getting him as strong as possible, as quickly as possible. Now that the 1-month period before the Chunin exams was gone, he had to abide by his promise, and if there was one thing that Konohamaru prided himself on, it was his conviction. If there was something that he said that he would do, then he would do it. That was why Konohamaru was training the basics, which he didn't like all that much, to say the least. He wanted to fight, and given that Naruto and Sasuke were two people his age that were strong, he couldn't think of any better people to train together with now that his grandfather had unfortunately passed away. After having finished warming up as three, they each decided to move over to separate parts of the training field as they wanted to work on their ninjutsu without the others watching. It was at this time that the group of foreign shinobi struck. Konohamaru led his team towards Sasuke, and before the boy knew it, there were wires wrapping around his body. Well, that at least that was what they thought. Ever since a month ago when he had started fighting Naruto on a consistent basis, Sasuke knew that he had to come up with another way to win his fights, as going into a taijutsu spar against Naruto was tantamount to suicide. His bloodline was just far too good at close combat. He needed to come up with another way of defeating Naruto, and that was through Genjutsu. With Konohamaru being the premier ninjutsu user out of the three given his ridiculous chakra reserves and Naruto being the taijutsu specialist, Sasuke was only left with Genjutsu out of the main three. The fact that Itachi was extremely profound in this area didn't hurt either, as it meant that it would prepare Sasuke for what he knew he would be up against one day. "You're a tough character, I like that. I can see why Orochimaru is interested in you," the leader of the team stated as he gave his subordinates the command to attack. Fighting one-on-one would be more than fine for Sasuke, but that was not what he was doing at the moment. Hell, 2-on-1 would be manageable, but 4-on-1, well, that was definitely a new experience to say the least. The fat one and the two-headed guy were easy enough to deal with for Sasuke thanks to the fact that every day this past month, he had been sparring with Naruto. Sure, he was on the defensive, but the speed of the fight was something that he could fight it without having to use chakra to increase his speed. Likewise, Sasuke was fairly proficient in combating against the genjutsu that were being thrown against him from the red-haired girl thanks to his recent training in Bloodline Limit. The person that was giving him trouble was the spider freak with 6 arms who talked as if everything was a video game. Fighting against 4 people at the same time was definitely a first for Sasuke, and he was having trouble multitasking despite having the advantage of the Sharingan. If you stay in this shitty village here, you will always be weak like everyone else. You will never become powerful. Playing games with your family and friends will only make you rot. Come with us. This time a different person spoke. It was the red-haired girl. If you do, Orochimaru-sama will give you the power that you seek. As Tayuya said this, the cursed seal on the neck of Sasuke started to flare up. It was now Sakan's turn to speak up, giving a dose of reality to the Uchiha Chunin. You will lose all form free will. Forever. Instead of the cursed seal giving you power, it merely transforms you into Orochimaru's slave. To gain something, you must be willing to sacrifice something else. What is your purpose in life? Will you just forget Itachi and continue to live in this simple village where you and your loser friends can gather and cry on each other's shoulders? Don't forget your purpose. This village will only become the shackles that bind you. It's best to just cut those worthless connections, and in doing so, you will be able to obtain a much greater power. I think you gay concepts sprouted enough shit. To think that if Orochimaru was that interested in you, Sasuke, he would have come here himself instead of getting these pieces of trash to come and do it for him. Obviously he doesn't think that highly of you. Naruto said loudly, which made the 4-sound ninja instantly turn their heads around. They wanted this to be a private meeting and thought that they had secured that. Obviously that was not the case. Yeah. I bet you pathetic pussies are no match for me and Naruto. We will show you that Konoha is much stronger than your insignificant shitstain of a village. Konohamaru shouted in agreement as he was appalled that Sasuke was not already shouting out his commitment to stay in the village. Let it be known that Konohamaru had some grudges to settle against the Sound Village ever since the death of his grandfather. Sasuke turned around and saw the two closest to what one would call friends. They were really the only people that he spent time with these days now that he was a chunin. Naruto in particular was someone that proved the point that you didn't need to be from a different village to be strong. He had defeated Sasuke and was only a year older. You needed the determination and good environment to succeed. If there was one thing that Naruto preached about his success, it was that he had determination and a variety of good teachers. If you had only one teacher, it would make you into a mold of that sensei. If you had multiple teachers, then you would get a better rounded education of the shinobi world. Having Orochimaru as his sole sensei wasn't what Sasuke wanted. He wanted to be strong, and he had noticed that he was becoming a better ninja under the tutelage of Kakashi and to a lesser extent Naruto than what he got from Orochimaru. All the Snake Sannin did was give him a second chakra network. Kakashi was the one that made him become a better ninja. Plus, Naruto was right. If Orochimaru was as interested in him as he said he was, then he would have come here himself. To think that he wasn't strong enough that he could just send these freaks after him was an insult on his Uchiha pride. 5 fingers of Naruto lit up in a bright orange. Sasuke had seen this all too well in spars with Naruto and knew that now was time to make his move unless he wanted to get caught in the crossfire. Katon, Tenchi Shuriuden, fire release, drilling finger grenades. Naruto muttered under his breath as he launched the jutsu at the enemies. He was confident that Sasuke would find a way to get out of the situation without any lasting damage. Indeed he did as Naruto fired off the jutsu. Sasuke used this distraction to use the replacement jutsu and get out of harm's way. Admittedly, the blonde chunin didn't think that this would do much damage, but it would be a good way to make this fight 3v4 instead of 2v4. When the smoke cleared from the explosions, Naruto, Konohamaru were left with some very angry faces, not that this fazed any of the chunins. The one thing that intrigued the 3 Konoha ninjas was that there were black markings that were going over the face of Jirobo. Konohamaru and Sasuke both instantly knew what this was, but Naruto had no idea. Seeing the look on the face of his comrade, Konohamaru decided to enlighten Naruto. That's the cursed seal that Orochimaru implants on his victims. It gives the user more chakra but screws with their mind, turning them into Orochimaru's little dick sleeve. Actually, on second thought, I can totally see why you would want to go to him since you love getting plowed up the S-team. TCH. Shut up, Dobe. Sasuke angrily replied with visible anger marring his face, which was saying a lot given his rather impressive emotional control. Naruto merely turned to Konohamaru with a curious expression on his face. How would you know that that's what Sasuke likes? Is it because you're the one doing it? Red flush rapidly appeared on the face of Konohamaru. What? No, before he could retort anymore, the brown-haired boy immediately channeled chakra into his wrist. This made the parting gift of his grandfather come into action. The Sarutobi gripped a red staff that came out of the seal and started spinning it relentlessly. With the inclusion of chakra, Konohamaru was able to deflect the incoming rocks aimed for his team. We need to focus and kill these scum. They helped Orochimaru kill my grandfather. Killing intent flooded the terrain as Konohamaru couldn't help but get angry and angrier at the thought of that man. First he had killed his grandfather and now he wanted to kidnap his best friend. Well, he was not going to let this happen on his watch. What the young Sarutobi was unaware of though was that the Jinchuriki markings on his cheeks were getting progressively darker and darker. Sasuke felt the need to speak up. The fat one showed that he prefers taijutsu, same with the 2-headed freak. The 6-armed guy likes to use ninjutsu who uses spider webs. The girl is a genjutsu user, so I will take her since I am the best genjutsu user. Naruto take the Spider-Man and Konohamaru take the other 2 until either Naruto or myself have killed our opponents and we will come help you. Naruto didn't have anything against that plan, and since this was not a mission there was no designated leader of the mission. Right, but if you guys can help it, try not to kill them. It was at this point the duo looked at Naruto. We should take them back to that Ibiki guy from the Chunin exams and let him extract absolutely every bit of information from them and then kill them. Dark grin appeared on the face of Naruto when spoke again. That doesn't mean that we won't be able to dish a hell of a lot of damage to them. You think that you guys are strong enough to do that? Huh, you guys don't even look that challenging. This is a low difficulty mission. Kadamaru replied before chewing on something in his mouth before firing it at Naruto. You two go. I'll be fine by myself. Naruto shouted as he mentally prepared himself for his newest fight. As he said this, Naruto triggered the jutsu that he had been working on when he was training with Danzo. The endoskeleton jutsu allowed Naruto to be hit and take significantly less damage than what other people would. Of course, there was the weak point being the joints, which he had to have, otherwise he would lose a ton of flexibility, but that was not something that was known to anyone. With the skeleton activated, it allowed Naruto to take a calculated risk. He wanted to see what he was dealing with in this fight. That was why he took the spider web that was shot at him and let it hit him in his hand, pinning it to the tree behind him. Curious as to how strong it was, Naruto tried to pull his arm free and noticed that it didn't budge an inch. There was a bit of panic in the eyes of Naruto as he saw the incoming kunai from his opponent. The blonde Chunin switched it up. Instead of channeling plain old regular chakra into his hand, Naruto channeled Keton chakra and watched how it burnt through the silk with ease. Naruto grinned as he had a new way to combat his foe, and then, in an instant, he disappeared. Naruto appeared right in front of Kadamaru with bones coming out of every joint in his body, and Naruto managed to swipe his elbow so that the spike managed to just scrape the right arm of Kadamaru. The Uzumaki didn't waste any time as he attempted to give a vicious kick to the thigh of his opponent. Unfortunately for Naruto, this was where the 6 arms of Kadamaru kicked in. He was able to block the attack. This is just like fighting Kimimaro. He is far too quick and deadly for me to handle in a close-range fight. I need to make this a long-range fight. Holding Naruto with his arms, Kadamaru surprised Naruto by forming a kunai. What Naruto noticed was that this one just so happened to a different color than the previous web. This string solidified right in front of Naruto's very eyes and watched in horror as it was shot right into his clavicle. Kadamaru, on the other hand, was shocked at the damage done as he didn't expect it to only embed so far. Sure, he hadn't been able to get that much momentum, but since he used his chakra to fire it off, it surely should have sunk into his skin more. He had to shake this off though as he felt his hands heating up rapidly. It would not be good if his hands were so burnt that he couldn't use chakra. Kadamaru instantly let go and used the Shunshin to put some distance between the two. This guy is a taijutsu monster like Kimimaro-sama. There's no way that I can enter a close-range fight and win. As these thoughts were running through the mind of the Hokage ninja, his curse seal had already activated and was repairing the damage that had been done by Naruto at a slightly faster rate. Can't let him hit me with those kunai that he made often. Whilst it hit my endoskeleton and not my organs, taking hits like that isn't fun. He seems like he wants to make this into a long-range fight. Well, that's fine with me as I have a few jutsus that I want to test out as well. Katan, Hazakisho, fire release, ash pile burning, Naruto chanted in his mind as it helped him use the new jutsu. This was the first time that he had field tested it, so he was definitely curious as to what would happen. Fresh with a large supply of chakra that would only continue to grow as he got older, Naruto poured a fair amount of chakra into the jutsu. When he was satisfied with the amount of ash that had been deposited into the forest, Naruto smirked and released the trigger. XXX. If Konohamaru's heart was beating fast before, well, it definitely was when he felt the explosion and felt the heat hit his face. It hurt, but he knew that he could handle it. He didn't know who had done it, but he hoped that his friends were not caught in the crossfire. The burn marks that appeared on his arm were already starting to heal thanks to the Bijou chakra coursing through his veins. Grin formed on the face of Konohamaru though as he saw that he wasn't the only one to take damage from whatever the hell that explosion was. One of the body double people of whatever they were took some serious damage and had burn marks all over his face. Sakan. We need to combine. This shit hurts. Yukon called out to his brother. The duo appeared together and started the merging process, allowing Yukon to heal up. Konohamaru had placed his staff back into its seal and prepared for a ninjutsu fight, and if there was one thing that was known about Jinchuriki, then you knew not to get into a ninjutsu cockfight because you simply wouldn't win. Jinchuriki pretty much had a never-ending chakra supply. Doton, Doryuden, Earth Release, Earth Dragon Bullet Jutsu, Naruto called out with vehemence as a dragon head rose out of the ground and started firing off balls of rock at his two enemies. Dotun, Dorikogeshi, Earth Release, Earth Shore Return, Jirobo called out as he made a wall come up and block the bullets from hitting either him or Sakan/Yukon. Whoever this kid is, he sure is tasty. Konohamaru moved forward from the defensive wall and used it as cover. Using one of the jutsus taught to him by his grandfather, the Chunin went underground and managed to surprise the two and summoned his power pole before smashing Jirobo in the face. Naruto planned to go continue the attack but was stopped by Sakan, who launched a vicious kick in his direction. This kid is a Jinchuriki. Fuck. This makes it much harder than normal since I can't use any of my bloodline techniques. Thankfully for the Hokage ninja, not being able to use his clan techniques didn't render his offensive output to just taijutsu and weapons. There was a reason why he was one of the Sound Four. Raitun, Raikyu. Lightning Release, Lightning Ball. Sakan called out and unleashed the ball at Naruto, who used his enhanced physical abilities thanks to the Kyuubi to evade the attack. Sakan wasn't entirely concerned with the jutsu not hitting its intended target because he was mainly using this as time for Jirobo to get back on his feet. Apparently the previous attack had hurt/angered the orange-haired person to the point that he had activated his cursed seal to the second level. Dotun, Doria Dango. Earth Release, Earth Mausoleum Dumpling. Jirobo shouted as he picked up a large boulder from the earth below and heaved it in the direction of Konohamaru. He may have been feeling the effects of the cursed seal as Jirobo was pretty much running on fumes at the moment. There was not really any form of strategy as he wished to simply brute force his opponent. Sakan found himself having to take control of the situation and guiding Jirobo on how to fight. Ugh. This is so troublesome. Despite having the Kyuubi inside him clouding his judgment, Konohamaru knew that it was not wise at all to try and take that boulder head-on. He knew that he would have to dodge it, and dodge it he did. Konohamaru followed it up with the Grand Fireball Jutsu. XXX. Fighting against one opponent was much easier in comparison to fighting off four. Sasuke Uchiha actually felt like he had the upper hand in this fight against Tayuya. Sure, he was on the back foot because he was going up against these doki creatures or whatever they were, but he was not feeling any sense of danger. Thanks to the Sharingan, Sasuke was able to easily see the incoming attacks of the creatures. In addition to this, Sasuke was able to see the chakra coming towards him in the form of a genjutsu. The fact that he had been practicing this over the past month was something that Sasuke was very much thankful for. The Uchiha Chunin was confident that he was using far less chakra than his opponent and was banking on this having a large impact on the fight down the track. Up until this point, Sasuke had only been using kunai and shuriken against the three summons whilst dodging. The great thing was that he wasn't using any form of chakra to keep up the speed he was fighting at apart from what it took to activate the Sharingan. Now that he had surveyed the fight just like Uchihas of old, Sasuke knew that it was time to act. As much as he hated to admit, he had kind of grown to tolerate the presence of both Naruto and Konohamaru. He didn't want anything to happen to them as they were the shield that protected him from the likes of Sakura. God, she was annoying. Sasuke showcased why everyone labeled him as a prodigy. Sasuke used the skills in ration manipulation that he had learnt in a month and channeled some ration chakra into a kunai and watched as it sped through the air, coming in contact cleanly with the forehead of the armless doki. It wasn't the most polished form of elemental manipulation, but it definitely got the job done. Puff of smoke happened and now Sasuke was only fighting up against two summons. XXX. Three Konoha Chunins were unaware that reinforcements were coming for the Hokage ninjas. Sure, it might have only been one ninja, but when that one ninja was easily able to defeat all of the Sound Four at once, it meant that it was significant reinforcements nonetheless. Kimimaro was coming and he was eagerly awaiting the chance to meet the only other person in the world who carried the same bloodline as him.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.